We have with us first two missionaries from El Salvador, and I'll let them introduce themselves. Brother?
My name is Juan Mazariegos, and this is my wife, Arthurine.
Okay, how long have you been in the full-time ministry?
I have had the joy of serving in the full-time service for the past 12 years.
And you, sister?
9 years.
How have you spent those years, brother?
Well, I served 6 months of 1961 as a special pioneer in Guatemala, Central America. And then the society invited me to go to El Salvador, where I served for 9.5 years in the circuit work.
How would you say the work has been progressing since you've been there?
When I went to El Salvador in 1962, there were 650 publishers in the country. And last May, we had a peak of 2,969 publishers, which amounts to a 357% increase in the past 10 years.
Quite remarkable. I also have a note here as to the meeting attendance being quite good. Would you like to share that with us?
Yes, it certainly is. We have attendances that go up to 200% of the number of publishers. The congregation we go to has 70 publishers, and we usually have up to 250 to 300 people in our meetings on Sunday.
Fine. Brothers, how would you like to have the President of your country visit your Kingdom Hall? Sister, would you like to relate how this happened in San Sebastian, El Salvador?
Yes, the new president of the country is making an effort to get to know the common man, and so he's been making short visits to some of the very small towns. The mayor of each town has the duty of making a list of the important places, and the president and his official party make a walking tour to each of these places. The mayor of San Sebastian decided that the Kingdom Hall, along with the town hall, the clinic and the Catholic church and the agricultural building, that these were the important places. Of course, there was some opposition, but he said, no, these two young ladies who are here are doing a very important work, one of the important places. So the president did come with his group. He entered the Kingdom Hall and talked to the two pioneer sisters there, and he asked about the work. They explained especially the educational aspect, and then they brought him over to a display of literature. They showed him some of the new publications, and especially the booklet, Learning to Read and Write, and the guidebook, Theocratic Ministry School guidebook. The sister explained to him this was to help improve public speaking. He said, I sure would like to have that. So she made him a gift of that book and some of the others. And he commended the sisters warmly. So this was very good to the brothers, because there have been incidents of nationalism arising, and they thought this was a very good witness to one of the highest officials.
I'm sure it was, and we thank you for your experience. Next, we'd like to talk to Brother Tillich. Brother Tillich, where are you a missionary, and how long have you been there?
I'm a missionary in Korea, and I've been there for 6 years now.
That's interesting. What would you say is the predominant religion in Korea?
Well, actually, the predominant religion there is Buddhism.
Mm-hmm. Would you describe for the brothers here how you carry on your preaching activity there?
All right, it's quite interesting compared to American standards, because we have a formal greeting process that we have to go through. We walk, meet the householder after we've knocked on the door and gone through the main gate, and we make a big honorific greeting, but we never bend our necks. We only bend at the waist. And then we begin talking with the householder, but we don't usually state our purpose fully until we have been inside the house, possibly for 5 minutes, because it's Korean custom to go inside, sit down on the floor since there are no chairs, and drink tea or coffee or something. After we have discussed whatever the householder wanted to talk about for about 5 or 6 minutes, then the householder will finally say, well, what is your purpose in coming to my home? then we begin our sermon.
I understand you mentioned that they asked some rather personal questions in this early discussion, too.
Yes, they do. In the Orient, you can ask anything you want, and it doesn't matter. You don't offend anyone. Are you married, or why aren't you married, or any question they want they can ask, even those of a personal nature.
How about that? Do they believe the Bible, and how does this affect your teaching methods?
Well, no, they really don't believe the Bible as being inspired in the Word of God. However, they do have a great amount of respect for the Bible. So when we speak to them, we are able to catch their attention, and they do know that it's a good book.
Would you say it was difficult to get the Buddhists to even accept the Bible?
Well, it is, yes, but the Koreans are a very logical group of people. See, rather than being interested in everlasting life, they're interested in seeing many children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. So when we speak to the Koreans, we don't begin with, wouldn't you like to live in a righteous new earth forever? Rather than saying that, we go at it from a different standpoint, because as a Buddhist, they aren't able to conceive of everlasting life. So we say something like, wouldn't you like to live a long and full life and be able to see many of your children and grandchildren? And they'll say, yes, I really would. How can I receive of this? But we don't usually use the word everlasting life.
You mentioned about their logic and their thinking. Could you describe how this works for us?
Well, the Koreans are very logical thinkers. They're emotional, but they're very logical. Just to make this point more clear, I can give an experience of what happened in the northern part concerning their logical thinking and their sincerity in putting it into force. Actually, what happened was there was a large family, and they were all studying the Bible together. But the younger members of the family accepted the points about ancestor worship and idol worship. And this family was really involved in idol worship. They had little idols about 7 inches high, 5 or 6 of them, all through the house. So these were stone idols. They were carved from stone. So the children learned from the Bible, those under 30 are the children. Those over 30 didn't go along with his teaching that ancestor worship and idol worship is wrong. So what happened was, when the elders were out of the house, the grandfather and the father were both out of the house, and the children got together and they decided to plan out a way to convince their father and the grandfather that this was wrong. So they took these idols and they smashed them all to bits inside the house, and then set it in the whole house in a set of disarray. And so when the elders came back, they saw that their house was all messed up and their idols were all broken into pieces. So, of course, the father knew that the children were trying to convince him not to worship idols, so he became very angry. He said, why did you break up these idols? Or why did you break up my gods? And so forth. The children answered by saying, we didn't do this. Your gods got into a fight with each other over who was the greatest, and they smashed each other to bits. So the father didn't believe this, so he said, and I quote, he said, idiots, don't you know that stones aren't able to fight? These are nothing but stones. Since he said that, his children very logically answered him and said, Father, if you realize that these are only stones, why is it that you continue to worship them? So by that you can see the logic that exists in the Korean mind.
Would you list briefly for us the results of the activity in Korea and what has been a great help in this increase?
Well, I've been in Korea for 6 years, and when I went there 6 years ago, there were 5,800 publishers. Since that time, we have had a 300% increase, and now we have 17,500 and some publishers.
Brother, do you plan on returning to Korea?
Yes, I'll be going back to Korea in 2 weeks, and I'll continue my work there.
Would you return our love and greetings to the brothers there?
Yes, I certainly would.
Thank you.